Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on an early morning on Wednesday. As all our meetings are, just wanted to note that this meeting is being recorded. So we'll just kick off with a roll call. Amy, if you'll do roll call for us.
My pleasure. Chair Lozar.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Nicetune.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Buchanan.
Good morning, I'm here.
Thank you. Regent Sexton.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Rogers.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Dombrowski.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Bao.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Christian.
I'm here.
Thank you. Governor Jean Forte and Superintendent Arnsten are excused from this meeting. Thank you, Chair Lozar.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy. Well, as the board is aware, we have one item on the agenda for us this morning. The agenda item and the corresponding resolution are posted and they're available for today's discussion. So I hope everyone has that pulled up. Before we get going, I wanted to just pause for a second and recognize and extend the congratulations on behalf of the Board of Regents to the thousands of students that reached their educational goals this spring and walked across the stage, either in person or virtually, to receive their diplomas. You know, the 2021 graduating class has shown just incredible resilience, dedication to their studies, perseverance in poise, and in balancing their scholarship amidst a public health emergency over these last 15 months. Your commitment to your education throughout the pandemic has been nothing short of remarkable. And we look forward to your future contributions to this in your field and making a positive impact in the state of Montana and beyond. So congratulations to all the Montana University System graduates. And hats off to the campus leadership and to faculty and staff that supported our graduates throughout their educational journey, and for creating a safe yet celebratory graduation ceremonies across the system that really honor the incredible achievements our students have earned. So to our campus community, thank you on behalf of the board. Now, I'd like to turn back to our agenda, and I'd like to take the opportunity just to make a few really brief comments. Certainly, first and foremost, I want to convey my sincere appreciation to everyone who has contacted us about House Bill 102. You know, over the previous weeks and months, we've heard from thousands of Montanans regarding the passage of this legislation. And I just wanted to express my gratitude as the chair of the board to everyone who shared their views with us, who took the time to write comments and submit them to us. It is clear that the citizens of Montana care deeply about the state and the campuses that call Montana home. At the center of the resolution before this body this morning is the constitutional authority of the Board of Regents. And with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Allie Bovington, our Chief Legal Counsel for the Montana University System, to provide a kind of a brief introduction of the item for consideration and a review of the constitutional powers of the Board of Regents. So I'll turn it over to you, Allie.
Good morning, Chair Lozar, Commissioner Christian, and members of the board. As Chair Lozar said, he asked me to give just a brief, some context and background to introduce the resolution. In considering the governance of Montana's higher education system, the delegates to the 1972 Constitutional Convention endorsed a model that established the Board of Regents as a constitutionally autonomous body. The delegates recognized the importance of the role of public higher education for the state and they proposed a governance model that they determined would best protect academic and administrative freedom for the university system. The language that was ultimately adopted by the delegates and ratified by the voters is found in Article 10, Section 9 of the Constitution, and that is the foundation of the board's power and its constitutional role. That provision provides the government and control of the Montana University system is vested in a Board of Regents of Higher Education, which shall have full power, responsibility, and authority to supervise, coordinate, manage, and control the Montana University system, and shall supervise and coordinate with other public educational institutions assigned by law. The language of the Constitution was very deliberate, and it was a change from the earlier provision in the Constitution, which granted more powers to the legislature. Those words of full power, responsibility, and authority to supervise, coordinate, manage, and control are really the thrust of what the board is considering this morning, in terms of whether or not House Bill 102 oversteps those the provision of the Constitution providing the board authority. Amy, if you could share the resolution. The resolution before the board this morning would direct the commissioner on behalf of the board to request judicial review to determine whether House Bill 102 improperly encroaches upon the constitutional role and authority of the board to supervise, manage, and control the Montana University system. Judicial review is appropriate in this situation to clarify and define the roles of both the legislature and the board under Montana's Constitution. With that, Chair Lozar, I will keep my remarks brief, but stand ready to assist with questions if there are any.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ali, for the brief overview of where our constitutional authority stems from, and a brief overview of the resolution. At this point in time, I'd like to open it up for discussion. We've got an agenda item, we have a resolution, and I wanted to open it up for comments to the resolution. Oh, Regent Rogers.
Thank you, Chair Lozar. And thank you for your steady leadership over the past year. It's been a big one. I've spent a lot of time deliberating on this issue that's before us today. I deeply respect the significance of my charge as a regent, and I take it as a constitutional and statutory duty to ensure the health and stability of the Montana University system. I also believe that I have invested the time to understand the complexity of this issues before us today and the many and potentially unintentional outcomes that can result from our actions as a board. While I personally have constitutional concerns about a number of pieces of legislation that have been signed into law this year, I welcome today's focused discussion and want to underscore its urgency in light of the June 1 implementation date for HB 102 on campuses. I have great respect for the work of the delegates to Montana's 1972 Constitutional Convention and the history that led them to create the Montana Board of Regents as a constitutionally autonomous body. I view our discussion today as nonpartisan. This is about a balanced, logical examination of Montana's Constitution and a request to the judicial branch to answer the question of what entity, the Montana legislature or the Montana Board of Regents, has the authority to set these kinds of policies for the Montana University system. I am inclined to support the item in front of us today, and I look forward to the discussion from my fellow regents. Thank you, Chair Lozar.
Thank you, Regent Rogers. Other comments? Yeah, Regent Nystuen.
Good morning, Chair Lozar, members of the board, Commissioner Christian. Ali, could you walk through the mechanics? So let's just assume this passes today. Tell us where this goes from here and timelines. What's it mean for the June 1st deadline, use of outside legal counsel, and so forth. If you could give us kind of a roadmap ahead, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Chair Lozar, Regent Nystuen, if the board passes the resolution today, we will circle as a staff here at OCHI and start to engage conversations around how to properly staff any litigation and whether or not that includes retaining outside counsel. As soon as we have a legal team established, which we will do very quickly, we'll have conversations about the best path forward. All of this will be done in the context of understanding the June 1st implementation date, and that this is an issue that that I believe the Regents feel needs to be brought forward for judicial review in a fairly quick pace. So we will move deliberately but swiftly.
As a follow-up, does this type of a review start at district court, or does it go directly to the Montana Supreme Court?
Chair Lozar, Regent Nystuen, yes, thank you for that question. So there are options for us to consider on both paths, and that will be something that the lawyers will determine what is the best forum to bring the case forward. And we'll of course keep the board informed as that conversation and those decisions are being made.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Regent Nystuen. Other comments from members of the board? Regent Bao.
Thanks, Chair Lozar. I'd just like to echo the comments from Bree that we really did see an incredible outpouring of comments and communication, emails, and notes that were heartfelt and compelling. And I'd just like to say thank you to the people of Montana who reached out on this issue.
Thank you, Regent Bao. Yes, Regent Dombrowski.
Thank you, Chair Lozar, Board of Regents, Commissioner Christian. I just want to can't underestimate enough the amount of feedback we received, and from a personal standpoint, the seriousness before us and the sense of urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Dombrowski. Regent Buchanan, I see you got a high five up.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I so appreciate the time and thought that each of us has put into this. It's joining the board here recently and jumping right in with kind of an assessment of constitutional authority as a primary focus right out of a legislative session, where we certainly recognize our legislative partners in the process of funding and participating with the leadership perspective over the higher ed system. And to Regent Dombrowski's point, to Regent Rogers' point, the amount of public comment compels action here. This is action that to me is more about interpretation of constitutional responsibilities and constitutional authority. And to Regent Dombrowski's perspective, boy, democracy's at work. The public comment we received was enormous. I'm trying to keep track of the calls, the emails, the notes, handwritten notes that we've received has been daunting. And I think it's important to note that there's perspectives from all sides, which again gives me great comfort that the approach we're considering today about elevating this for interpretation is exactly the right approach. And can't thank fellow board members and the public enough for the deliberateness with which we've engaged in this conversation, the civility with which we've engaged, and am inclined to support the action that we're considering today. Thanks to each of you for the time and care you've given to this.
Thank you, Regent Buchanan. Oh, Regent Sexton.
Thank you, Chair Lozar and members of the board, Commissioner Christian. I really wanted to give a lot of appreciation to the commissioner staff for their flexibility and just the responsiveness. I feel like there's been at times some uncertainty, and I felt like they were always available to answer questions and have responded really quickly. So I really wanted to acknowledge their expertise and ability to assist through this. So I wanted to say that first. I also wanted to, again, thank the public comment that we've received. It's been at times unprecedented, the amount of emails. I didn't realize how many emails you could get in one day. And so, but truly, it's been incredibly helpful, and I'm really appreciative of it. But aside from that, I just want to say that this has really, for me, been a matter of requesting clarity as to what my position as a board member truly is. Setting aside however I feel about the contents of the bill one way or another, I truly feel it's important to understand what my role as a regent is. And I understand that my actions today not only affect myself and the rest of the board, but also future board members. And so I really do appreciate the importance of this, and also the just the weightiness of the topic. So as I know everyone else here has done this, I've given this a great deal of thought, and I'm very appreciative to not only the public comment, but again, the Commissioner's office for being so helpful and ready to answer questions. And so, yes, anyway, I think that's all I have. But again, just thank you. I'm definitely inclined to support this today. I'm appreciative that we're approaching this as a board and we're having this discussion. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Regent Sexton. Any other comments from members of the board? Seeing none,
Casey,
I just,
Chair Lozar,
yeah, Regent Nystuen.
I think it'd be interesting to hear from Commissioner Christian about, again, Clay, thank you for all your hard work and dedication of your team throughout all this as well. Comments and perspectives as we move forward here. I think it'd be appropriate to hear from you and your office and your team as to where we go from here and how we do it. Clay?
Sure. Regent Nystuen, Chair Lozar, appreciate that. You know, I think you all have shaped it well. Regent Sexton, I really appreciate your comments. Regent Buchanan, this, you know, I do view our role as a partnership with the legislature, but sometimes even partnerships need clarity. And I think what we're seeking here is that clarity around the responsibility of this weighty decision. And as far as kind of logistically, Regent Nystuen, how we move forward, you know, we'll take this charge today and move quickly. Assembling a plan. Not that we haven't thought about this, but I think we needed this conversation, this meeting, this clarity from you all as a board. To us as staff, we take our position, our role as staff seriously, and we'll go to work implementing your desires when this meeting comes to a close. And that will, you know, involve a whole lot of legal strategy that I don't certainly have at my fingertips, but we will work through very quickly on what we're going to do in terms of engaging outside counsel, how that outside counsel will represent, and then we will listen to the good team that we assemble on what is the best path forward. And once that's been established, we'll move forward on that path in terms of how do we seek this clarity, this judicial review that we're asking about. So I can't give you the specifics step by step, Regent Nystuen, how this plays out, but it will play out, and we are very, as Ali said, we're very cognizant of the June 1 deadline, and we'll move quickly to try to see if we can't at least get the process started prior to that implementation date and see where we land, and we'll maneuver accordingly between now and then.
As a follow-up, Mr. Commissioner, are there any limitations placed on the Commissioner's office or the board with regards to using state resources for these types of things here? Or I presume that there will be some financial impacts, costs relating to this somewhere up and down the line here. How do we appropriate the right dollars from the right areas to be able to provide you the necessary financial resources to make this work?
Regent Nystuen, Chair Lozar, you know, certainly we have Ali as your chief legal counsel. She will manage this from start to finish. Believe that is part of her role and scope. If and when we turn to outside counsel, we'll look at those things. We certainly have budget built within the system to deal with these types of issues throughout the year. If there's things that are outside of our comfort zone or outside of the scope, we'll come back to the board and address those as needed. Ally, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's exactly right. And this, this contemplation of judicial review, I think squarely falls in the board's scope and role and constitutional autonomy. And so, routinely for this sort of litigation, both the commissioner's office and state agencies hire outside counsel and use state resources to do that. And so I don't see that there are any barriers there.
Thank you for that clarity, Ally and Clay. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Regent Nystuen. Yes, Regent Sexton.
Thank you, Chair Lozar. I neglected to, when I spoke previously, I really also wanted to recognize the student feedback that I received. And one thing that really stood out to me was the bipartisanship even from the students. I had a number of comments from students who supported the contents of House Bill 102, but also recognized the potential conflict with constitutional authority. And I did receive some very meaningful feedback from the Montana Associated students that I felt was extremely valuable. So I feel I'd be neglecting my responsibility as student regent to not at least acknowledge that. And I'm really appreciative to the students that took the time, especially during finals week, to give their feedback. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Sexton. Any other comments from members of the board? Not seen any. I had a few brief comments. I think the first is just my gratitude to the board members who have taken so much time over the past 2 or 3 months of reading through all of the comments that we've received. I know this is, certainly in my time on the board, this is an uncommon time where we've received thousands and thousands of comments and letters, and I'm glad, Regent Sexton, that you underscored the student voice. The students have been very, very vocal and very balanced in their thinking and in their perspectives that they've shared with us. As a public board for our public higher education system, many of our policies are informed by the public, by the campuses, by students, by OG. And at every meeting, we entertain public comments, and we provide that opportunity to engage with the public, even in between our meetings, for Montanans to share their perspectives with us. It's just clear, based on the volume of comments that we received, that this is an issue that's incredibly important to our citizens. And it's clear that an overwhelming number of the individuals that have engaged with this body have concerns about the preservation of the constitutional authority of our board. And I think each and every one of you have sort of underscored that concern as well. And Clay mentioned, the strong relationship in partnership with the Montana legislature. And we've built a really strong partnership over the past 15 years with the legislature. And they're really a key partner in ensuring that the Montana University system is a great place to learn, to thrive, to prepare young people and adult learners to make a positive impact in our state. And the board really does value and respects the legislative process, and will continue to work in good faith with our legislative partners. At the same time, I believe that it's our right, if not our obligation, for us to seek this judicial review of House Bill 102 to honor the constitutional balance that is affirmed in the Montana Constitution and the powers that are vested to the Board of Regents. And for these reasons and the number of reasons that you all have mentioned, I strongly support in an affirmative vote on the resolution and a swift judicial review by Commissioner Christian and his staff. So seeing no other comments, I don't see any other comments. I'll entertain a motion to approve the item that's before us, directing the officer of the Commissioner of Higher Education on behalf of the Board of Regents to request judicial review of House Bill 102.
So moved.
Moved by Regent Dombrowski. Is there any additional comments from members of the board? Any additional comments? Is there any additional comments from the campuses? Any comments from the campuses? And I'll turn it over to Amy to see if there are any comments from the campuses.
Thank you, Chair Lozar. I'm going to give it just a second here to see if any hands go up from campus members. But at this time, I'm seeing none.
Any additional comments from the campuses? Is there any public comment? Any public comment? I'll turn it back over to you, Amy, to assess if we have public comment.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Lozar. With your permission, I'd like to read through how we'll approach public comment at this time as hands go up.
Okay, thank you.
As Chair Lozar just mentioned, we're at the time in the meeting where we are accepting public comment. If you wish to provide comment, please use the raise your hand feature through the online system located at the lower center of your screen. It may also be found at the bottom of the participants panel after clicking the participants button. If you are joining us by phone today, please press *9, that's the asterisk followed by the numeral 9 to raise your hand. Once your hand is raised, please wait to be called on. We will acknowledge your request as soon as we can, and I, as your host, will lower hands in order and prompt you to unmute your line. For those, again, joining by phone, you'll press *6 to unmute yourself. Those online, simply press unmute when prompted. When you are unmuted, please state your full name for the record and proceed with comment. A friendly reminder that written comment may also be submitted to myself at aunsworth@montana.edu. If you run into any technical issues, please email Jared Smith at jsmith@montana.edu for assistance. Jared is on standby and ready to assist. Thank you, Chair Lozar. I see that we have 3 hands raised, and with your permission, I'll move them in.
Please move forward, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Steve Barrett. I live in Bozeman, Montana. Excuse me, Chairman Lozar, Regents, and Commissioner Christian. And I have to take a moment of personal privilege to say how welcome it is to see Regent Buchanan back on the board. I had the pleasure of serving with him before when I was lucky enough to be on the Board of Regents, and his experience in council are going to serve you well. I wrote a lengthy letter to each of you, so I'm not going to repeat those comments all here. And I also wrote an editorial that essentially on the lines that went to papers throughout the state. So my comment is really twofold and simple. For one, and you've really echoed it, constitutions either mean something or they don't. And that's what you're about to, you need to find out. It means something, and as Regent Sexton said, it talks about future generations of regents, not just the regents here today, and not just how this group gets along with the legislature. This is the future. And the second thing, which really is probably not totally addressed to the regents, more to the commissioner's staff and Ms. Bovington, is I've been practicing law in Bozeman for 46 years. I know I don't look that old, but I really am. And it would be my strong recommendation that when you discuss strategy on this, that you consider going to the district court rather than directly to the Supreme Court. I don't think it'll change the timing. And I think you will be better served when you when you fly an airplane, there's two things you can never replace. That's runway behind you and fuel on the ground. And it's better if you can flesh these arguments out, have a chance to have things happen, have a chance to mend your course if it's necessary, rather than go directly to the Supreme Court where it's sort of a one-shot deal. So that's my suggestion. I thank you for the opportunity. I thank you for taking all the input you've had. I can remember some issues where we had some, but nothing apparently like you've received here. And so thank you for your service and thank you for taking the time to allow me to speak.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate your public comment and your previous service as a member of the Board of Regents. Amy, additional public comment?
Yes, Chair Lozar, the next person is unmuted now.
Excellent. Mainan, you're on.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner Christensen, Board of Regents, Chairman Lozar. My name is Mainan Robinson Ellingson. I was a delegate to the 1972 Montana Constitution and would like to just read a brief statement that I prepared for you. Article 10, Section 9.2, squarely and clearly vests in you, the Board of Regents, the governance and control of the Montana University system, with full power, responsibility, and authority to supervise, coordinate, manage, and control the system. Inherent within that is the obligation to provide for and protect the health, safety, and welfare of university students, faculty, and staff, as well as visitors to the campus. House Bill 102, applied to the Montana University system, encroaches on that power. Be mindful, please, that this constitutional grant of power to the Board of Regents in 1972 was hard fought and considered a very significant victory for the independent governance of Montana's system of higher education. It heralded the end of legislative or attempted legislative interference in matters of academic freedom that were well documented through the state's history up to 1972. You have the obligation, in my opinion, to preserve this hard-fought and important grant of power, much as the Board of Regents did when it challenged the constitutionality of two pieces of legislation passed by the 1975 legislature. You owe it to your constituents and to the successors to this lofty and important position you currently hold. I realize it's not easy to challenge the legislature as they clearly control the purse strings, and they have seemingly used that power to preempt you from challenging HB 102. They've also sought your acquiescence on this power grab by granting you the right to impose regulations implementing House Bill 102 on campus. That is not the legislature's to give. The authority for you to impose regulations comes directly from the Constitution. This is a critical principle and it goes far beyond guns on campuses. So it sounds like you are not, and I applaud not letting political expediency blur the commitment to this principle. As Regent Sexton pointed out, our Constitution was ordained for not only this generation, but for future generations. The integrity of Article 10, Section 9.2, and the ability of the regents to fulfill their constitutional duties really does rest with you. So I do respectfully urge you to approve the resolution that's before you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mainan. Is there any other public comment?
Chair Lozar, we have two other people at the moment. Brian, if you're able.
Thank you, Commissioner and Chair Lozar, Board of Regents. My name is Brian Psycho. I am a resident of Great Falls, Montana. Also teach at Great Falls College. Although my comments here do not reflect a representative voice of the college, so I just want to make that clear. I think some of the points that have been made have been well made, and to Regent Buchanan's comments, as well as the delegate that just spoke, which I appreciate that viewpoint. The intent of the original constitutional amendment in 72 was for the preservation and protection of academic control and freedom on the university campuses. I find it very difficult to believe that the authorial intent would also to include the ability to limit or govern the constitutional rights of the citizens of the state of Montana and of the United States of America. So while I think that challenging this may indeed find some clarity in what that intent actually was, I've been discouraged by seeing the board's actions to limit constitutional rights of its students and of the citizens of Montana to date. For example, if the board hadn't taken steps to limit freedom of speech in certain ways, then the legislature would not have to go about making changes in order to force your hand, per se, to allow that constitutional right to be fully granted to its state citizens and to the students of the Montana University system. HB 102, I think, really is no different. Again, it's a constitutional right of the students and of the citizens of Montana that has been limited, I believe, outside the constitutional intent of that amendment back in 72. I am sensitive to all of the different topics and items that have been presented both on campus and by the board. I do think that there's a lot of different considerations that need to be made. But as far as it goes strictly on preserving academic freedom and academic control versus constitutional rights of the citizens, I think that there's an overreach. And there is an area where the state legislation does need to protect those freedoms and rights, as well as the health and safety of its students and of its citizens. A few people have said this goes well beyond HB 102, and that's true. HB 112 is a good example of that. There's an inherent right that needs to be protected for the females of our state. And when that is not being upheld, someone has to have the ability to step in and have oversight over that. So that's where I will leave my comments. I hope that I was clear in that. I want to thank you for your time to be able to speak to this. I do thank you for your service. I do hope that my perspective, as well as the perspective of many others, perhaps, that share my perspective, could possibly have a greater representation in this body. Because as it stands, it feels like, though I may be in a minority, it's a far minority, and it's been said that there are lots of different perspectives, but very little has been done, I believe, to represent those minority perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for your comments. And just as a reminder, for other public comment, we'll try to keep public comment to about 90 seconds. Amy, is there any additional public comment?
Chair Lozar, we have one left. Andy, if you're able, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Lozar, Commissioner Christian, and members of the board. My name is Andy Pelosi. I do not live in Montana. I live in New York State. I'm the director of the Campaign to Keep Guns Off Campus, and I just want to make brief comments. The reason I'm weighing in is because we have worked on this issue for over 14 years, and in particular interest in the state of Georgia, which has an ongoing case challenging the law there that allows guns on campus. And that case has been ongoing for 4 years. So thus, there's a connection for us here in your state. I wanted to thank you for the deliberate actions you've been taking, hearing comments from all sides, especially the stakeholders. I did listen last week when the students, faculty, survivors, and others spoke, and I'm so glad that their voices were elevated. My quick question is, this may be for Chief Counsel, is when you are asking for judicial review, and you will also be asking for some type of stay so that this will not be implemented if you don't make the June 1st deadline, will there be some type of stay that you'd be asking for so that the courts have time to hear this if you run past the June 1st deadline? Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And just as way of how we do public comments in the Montana University system for the Board of Regents, it's members of the public are allowed to provide their comments and their perspective, but public comment is not a point of time for sort of back and forth with the staff. So we appreciate you taking the time to provide your perspective. Amy, is there any additional public comment?
Chair Lozer, there is. Tim, if you would go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Tim Capps. I'm an employee of Montana State University, Bozeman. I believe that HB 102 at the Montana legislative level affirmed our Second Amendment rights and confirmed that those rights are not subject to reinterpretation or alteration at the state level. The issue here is not whether the legislative office or the Board of Regents has ultimate authority. One could argue either way. What I believe is not open for debate is whether or not the board has the authority to override the Constitution of the United States. It does not have that authority, and thus should not waste time and money arguing with the legislature about authority, as that issue is largely irrelevant. And keeping in mind that bad actors will not follow rules no matter who makes them, imposing rules contrary to our United States Constitution, in my opinion, is futile at best. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on this issue.
Thank you, Tim. Any additional public comment? Again, if there is, we ask that you keep public comment to about 90 seconds. Amy, is there additional public comment?
There is. David, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Christensen and Chairman Lozar and the Board of Regents. I just kind of want to bring this. I'm a student. My name's David Dykon, and I'm a student at the University of Montana. And just to bring this kind of down to earth at a ground level, last April 2020, UMPD had to respond to an assault on Mount Sentinel, where a woman was severely injured and her son was assaulted, as well as 2 other people were assaulted later on in the day by the same person. And we have to realize that that assault was ended by a person with a weapon. I talked to several students about why would you want to carry on campus, and it's not so much that they feel in danger on campus, but many people choose to leave campus and enter areas where we might recreate and encounter dangers. And to be able to carry a weapon on campus and then proceed about your daily lives off of campus as well. This is a huge question. It's the constitutional authority between the commissioners and the rights of the citizens to protect ourselves if we deem that that's a choice we wish to make. I appreciate all of your effort in this area and look forward to the results of your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Is there any additional public comments?
I see one more, Chair Lozar. Lauren, if you would unmute yourself, please.
Chair Lozar and Regents. I am actually also a classmate of the previous speakers attending the University of Montana School of Law. And I would heavily reiterate what you said this morning. I appreciate so deeply the student voices and how many people have stood up and said something. I think the fact that you had over 200 people at your last meeting really speaks to how seriously students have taken this issue. And when the overwhelming majority of those voices is urging you to please consider exploring the constitutionality of this, I would heed that you follow those requests and take them very seriously, despite comment we've heard this morning. I appreciate all that you've done. And with that, I will yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Is there any additional public comment?
Sure.
Amy?
I see none at this time.
Excellent. Well, seeing no further comment, I will now call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Thanks again to the members of the board who spent so much time thinking about this matter, and look forward to a swift judicial review by Commissioner Christian and your team. Since this is a public meeting, I will now call for any additional public comment on any matter that is not on the agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the Board of Regents. So we'll follow the same procedure as we did earlier. So I will see if there is any public comment. Amy, is there any public comment?
Chair Lozar, I am seeing no hands at this time.
Okay, we'll give it one more shot. Is there any additional public comment on any matter that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing no further comment, again, I'd like to just thank the Board of Regents for taking time out of your morning to engage in this really important conversation about the constitutional authority of this board and seeking clarity on House Bill 102. Thank you to the staff, to the commissioner, and to Ali, and thank you to Amy for certainly providing this platform for our meeting and for processing all the public comment that we've received over the past 3 or 4 months. You've done just an incredible job to ensure that we have access to all of that information. And I look forward to our regularly scheduled meeting next week on Wednesday. I look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks again, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Keith.